Mic check. Don't mind me, this is a mic check. Yeah, it looks like we still have about 2 minutes left before we begin this meeting, so I guess just make yourself comfortable and I'll see you in just a bit. Alright, my apologies, just got off the line with my mother. And, gotta answer your mom's call while you still can. I'm sure we could all agree on that. But that's relevant to the meeting that was called today. I do want to thank you for taking the time to attend this sort of random urgent meeting that I did call. I understand that you have a massive workload, which of course probably creates a lot of stress. Certainly didn't call this meeting to add that stress, but we just decided to talk about your network, really just your cybersecurity, and just the network security was just not great. Okay, and I wouldn't call this urgent meeting a random meeting if I didn't feel like it needed to be addressed. So again, to keep that in mind as we go through this quick meeting, I will try to condense this down for you, as I understand that you again have greater priorities, but we can address that later. Just brief introduction. My name is Mark. I'm a senior pen tester. Right now, contracted through IBM. Been in cybersecurity for, I think it's been about 8 years now. I'm introduced to cybersecurity, kind of stumbled around for about 3 years. Fell in love with pen testing and I guess all of the skills that come with being able to ethically hack. Before then I was like 23. I had absolutely no idea where I was going to go with my life, but I knew that it wasn't great. Managed to get accepted into a program at Next Gen Training, and I just really fell in love with what I was doing, and that's, of course, all credit to them. So yes, that is who I am. I was just a normal guy. Still am just a normal guy. I just specialize in maybe a different field, right? So again, we're here to talk about cybersecurity. My goal is to sort of make this like cybersecurity, get rid of that stigma that you have to be some sort of super genius, math whiz, whatever. Because again, this is where the main problem stems from, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So my goal today is to present to you the information that I've found, and I guess show you the different ways it could be exploited. But I also don't want to do that. I want to be able to do that in a way that you will be able to understand, so that whenever you do think about cybersecurity, you don't throw your hands up in the air and say that's above me. So, shall we begin? Cybersecurity, the best way to describe it, cybersecurity being a very broad but vast field. It's the technologies and practices that keep the computer systems, the electronic data, and even the user, the business, executives, stakeholders, of course. It's all about keeping them safe and secure. It's continually growing, and thanks to this ongoing pandemic, it will only continue to increase as far as the different attacks and what I was able to do here. Cybersecurity is essentially keeping yourself safe from the bad people that will hack into your computers or your phone and steal your information. And when you think of that on like a larger scale, what that could mean for a business, I guess what I'm struggling to get at is it plays a vital role in every business, big or small. The term getting hacked, it sounds unrealistic again, but it's a direct threat to the confidential data stored by the companies. And And again, my goal is to help you understand. And so, again, cybersecurity is important, but cybersecurity is broad, so we want to narrow down what is important. Just a statistic here for you. Cyber attacks are predicted to reach annual cost of over 10.5 trillion with a T dollars by the year 2025. Specifically, the United States is the highest ranking country with cyber attacks costing $27.3 million a year. And I will not take credit for that statistic. I don't have that. That is totally regurgitated. Point being is that cyber attacks cost a lot of money, great deal of money, and they're only getting worse. Again, could be because a lot of people are now online. So, first step to understanding security is understanding what are you protecting yourself from? Why, right? Why should you lock your doors? Same concept, right? So, what are these attackers, these malicious people, which, by the way, no different than you, myself, other than they fall a little bit short of the typical moral standard, or ethic standard. So, there's no definitive answer. That's what we need to realize about what we're trying to protect ourselves, because there are so many different known exploits and vulnerabilities, so many different motives and agendas behind these different cyber attacks, which, again, I am mentioning it because it's important. They are evolving and infecting devices at a significant rate, but I think I have some stats in the presentation later. We're moving forward. Over 90% of the cyber attacks have one goal in common, just like everybody else. Most times that does something sort of vile or evil, it's in hopes to benefit themselves, mostly to line their pockets, right? Most of the time it's stealing. So the main point today is that really the network security, web application security, and sorry, but it just, based off of the vulnerabilities that I exploited, it just seems like there isn't a great understanding of like the typical business standard when it comes to cybersecurity. And this is not a dig at anybody in the room. The cybersecurity specialists understand that not very many people, whether you're a business owner or not, they don't really understand cybersecurity. They don't necessarily understand what it is or why they should be protecting themselves. And if they don't understand it, then you can't necessarily prepare for it properly. But we'll get into that a little bit later. And again, not a dig, but the issue is that nobody wants to admit that they are ignorant when it comes to cybersecurity. And to be quite frankly, that's just like admitting that you're wrong, no different than admitting that you're wrong. Nobody wants to do that, correct? But the stigma comes from people then think that you don't care about your business and your assets and your customers or your guests, right? Again, it's not that you don't care, but you just don't adequately understand the potential risk that you are and have been exposing yourself to. I'm just not sure how long. So again, today the goal was to test the network security, the topology, website vulnerability, and employee accountability, to express the importance of cybersecurity and to help gauge what plans of actions should be taken after falling victim to an attack. So the first step was to just mimic a couple of attacks. So these were the vulnerabilities that I was able to exploit. And this was, again, given the lack of proper security, okay? So I used some very common tools used by hackers, whether that's ethically or morally incorrect, morally misaligned. Anywho, it's Really, they're just tools. Nmap being a way for me to scan your network, or your ports. Nerdy terms, they call it like reconnaissance. I mean, if you could think about, I don't have an analogy. So Nmap was used as a port network scanner. Metasploit is an exploitation framework used to exploit known vulnerabilities based off of the information that you find in Nmap. So, how do you protect yourself? How do you protect the company's integrity? This is what is important. I was going to show you a video, but I'm looking at the time and it's already a little bit past how much time I would have liked to spend here. So you can protect the company's integrity, in turn protecting yourself by developing what we call cyber hygiene. And we use hygiene, and you think about this in reference to your teeth. If you do not have good hygiene or good habits or patterns, eventually you will have to pay for that. So again, if we're using a dentist and you don't have good hygiene, you're not practicing dental hygiene, eventually you're going to spend quite a bit of money on a root canal. You understand? So, but we're not talking about teeth, we're talking about a business. We're talking about people's livelihoods. This is why I called an urgent level meeting. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Target data breach that happened. My apologies, I don't remember the date, the year off the top of my head. But there was a Target data breach, and the executives, the C-suites, were actually then sued personally. They were held personally accountable, right? I do not want to see that happen to any of you guys. So again, we need to incorporate a sense of cyber hygiene. Need to be specific. And when I say be specific, you need to eliminate the word risk. The word risk is like probably. I find it offensive. And you should find it offensive too if I were to ever use the term, oh, it's a risk. That and like cybersecurity translates to like a mechanic telling you probably, or a doctor you should be, right? This is believed to be a complex field, and we are supposed to specialize in it. Specialize specific. So get rid of the word risk. Be specific. Know what you are vulnerable to. Know how that they would exploit your vulnerabilities and how to protect them. You also need a dedicated cyber role, at least one. Somebody who is, again, specialized in the field, so that in the instance that there ever is a data security breach, he is held responsible. He is head of cyber security, right? So you guys definitely need to dedicate a lead cybersecurity specialist role, and then eventually you'll be able to hire on supporting roles, right? My next point is that you're only as strong as your weakest link. One of my attacks was based on social engineering. It really didn't take much, but acting like I was the janitor, waiting for somebody to leave their desk unattended, and then for my attack from then. So, spend money on your people, so you're not spending money because of your people. And again, starts with that cyber hygiene. Starts with making sure that your network security, that the firewalls aren't misconfigured. Making sure that your port 80, your internet port, is not just open. Able to be socketed and then controlled. you need to perform. And that is another thing, is that if you were, I guess, like conducting sort of like mock attacks, mostly social engineering and phishing, because those make up most, if not all, of the attacks. And lastly, insurance. I did not see any like standalone cyber security insurance, and those do exist. There's insurance for nearly everything. So we're approaching 15 minutes. This is important. We're going to talk about money here. And we're just, you need to, and again, I'm trying to present this in a way that's not too complex, but also not to be taken offended. You simply have to spend to save or protect, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to. The allotted 500K is simply not enough, and we can break that down by this. And this is a statistic, again, this is the regurgitated stuff. The average cost of a cyber attack is $34,000. I performed 3 attacks in a matter of, I think I've been here for 2 hours. So if you can imagine, like, maybe 2 attacks quarterly, okay, eventually it adds up, okay? So keep that number in mind, 34K. And you would like to then have to take into consideration the cost of adequately training your people. Again, spend money on your people so you're not spending money because of your people, right? Training would be like a basic cybersecurity knowledge. And again, some examples of that would be like running the different social engineering mock attacks or the phishing emails. Right. After that, we want to take into consideration the cost of updating, patching the services, the software devices, and the operating system versions. Not all of them, but there are definitely quite a few outdated machines. And when I say outdated, I mean like operating system versions. It looks like they haven't been patched in like 3 years. Again, not a risk, but a vulnerability that could be exploited. So you need to take that into consideration. So right now from the top we have the average cost of a cyber security attack, cost of adequately training your people, the cost of updating, patching services, how much is it going to cost to dedicate a lead cyber role. After that, you would want to then consider the cost of support cyber roles, the cost of insurance, and of course, I still have to get paid. But okay, that looks like we did wrap that up. Again, my apologies for running a whole 6 minutes over. There are some business stats. I will go ahead and send the actual report here to this email that I have on file. And if you guys do have any questions, again, feel free to ask. Hopefully you feel a little bit better about cybersecurity. Hopefully you understand that it can totally be prevented. And if you do not think that it can happen, then it will happen. And I encourage you to look at the scary small business stats. 60% of small businesses close after, 6 months after their first cybersecurity attack, and it's because they don't know how to prepare for it. So I'll also attach the slide. This is being recorded, so really I'll just attach the brief meeting, just so if you need to go back and reference it, you definitely can. Again, thank you so much for your time, and yeah, I'll hopefully be back in a couple of months to test your newly secured network and the different web apps. And don't forget your people. Thanks.